paradise and put up a parking lot with a pink hotel, a boutique, and a swinging hot spot. Don't it always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone? It'd be a paradise and put up a parking lot.
Hi, Dawson here, and today we are looking at slope, intercept, and standard form. So this isn't really, I guess it is math, but it's basically just looking at how do mathematicians and scientists and such how do we have some standard forms that everybody can accept when we're looking at linear equations, so that we can all be speaking the same language, basically. So the essential question today: how do I write an equation in slope, intercept, and standard form? So we're going to learn how to go between the two. Alright, so first let's get some definitions down. Slope-intercept is the form that is most commonly done first with students, and that's the one that I certainly have used first, which is y equals mx plus b. And we have talked a lot about that in our class. And it's really very, very functional and helpful form because you have a lot of information here that helps you to write your graph quickly, and also if you have a table, to write an equation quickly for it. And so it is basically, here's your first piece, that's the y, and that's your dependent variable. And then you also have here your slope, and that's the one that we often are trying to find. Here's my y-intercept, and this is my independent variable. And the nice thing about this is that all linear equations, all straight lines on a graph, can be represented in this form, y equals mx plus b. And if you know what the slope is, and you know what the y-intercept is, you can write an equation very quickly. So that's your slope-intercept form. Y is always on the left. It always is x, and then whatever your y-intercept is. So that's slope-intercept form, much more basic. Now when we get to standard form, not used quite as frequently for most people, but it is used and has some pretty good applications to it. And here's what standard form looks like. It looks different because x and y are both on the same side of the equation. They're over here on the left hand side, and the whole number is on the right hand side, so that's separated. Then but there's some real specific things that you need to have in here. First off, as we talked about already, x and y are on the left side of the equation, so that's one of the most important parts about standard form. That's one of the things that really separates it from slope-intercept. With slope-intercept, y is only on this side, x is on this side. A, B, and C, now these are just variables like x and y that can stand for any numbers. So for any linear equation, you're going to have different A, B, and C's, but x and y will always be in there. But they need to be integers. So it needs to be positive 1, positive 2, positive 3, or it could be negative 4, negative 7, negative 8, whatever. But they need to be integers of some kind. Now we'll talk about x. X has to be positive as well, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now the next one, x, the x term always goes before the y term in standard form. And so it always goes whatever x, your coefficient of x, plus whatever y equals your c. That's rule number 3. Rule number 4 is that a, the coefficient of x, has to be a positive number as well. And so while I said up here a, b, and c are always integers, and y can be negative and c can be negative, the a always has to be positive. Why? I don't know. Bunch of mathematicians made these decisions a long time ago, and we all have to follow suit now. Now it does help because you don't have a negative hanging out from the front, and helps to keep things consistent between one person and another, but I'm not sure how important it really is. Alright, so those are the those are the 4 rules of standard form. And so now I want to go through an example with you, start in slope-intercept form, and convert it over to standard form. Alright, so we got our slope-intercept form up here again, y equals mx plus b. And I'm going to go with the equation y equals 1/2 x plus 3. This is slope-intercept form because my y is in the left, my slope is next to the x, and I'm adding my y-intercept. So slope is 1/2, y-intercept is 3. Okay, so that's all good. But now how do I take this and move it into standard form? Well, if we go back and we look at the last slide, we'll have to remember that x and y are both on the left-hand side of the equation. So I've got to get my x over to the left side. And also that a, b, and c are always integers. So if I look at this equation, I need to get this term over here, but I also need to get rid of this fraction, and I prefer to get rid of the fractions first. If you remember from earlier, to get rid of a fraction, you multiply all the terms in the equation by the number that's in the denominator. And so if I take 2 and I multiply this by 2, and this by 2, and this by 2, I'm going to get 2y. And that's going to be equal to 2 over 2, because 2 times 1 is 2, divided by 2. But 2 divided by 2 is just 1, and so that leaves me with just x. So that simplifies it nicely, and then this is 6. Okay, so as long as I multiply by 2 to every term in an equation, then it's a legal math thing to do, and I can get rid of my fractions. So now that's good. Now let's get x over here. But in order to get x over there, I have to subtract x from both sides. But I can't combine these two together, so I'm going to have negative x plus 2y. They're not like terms because they have different variables to them. And then I'm left with just 6 on this side. Well, I'm close now, but remember I said that the x has to be positive as well. And so now, in order to make x positive, I have to multiply by negative 1 to change the sign of that. But if I do it to this one, I've got to do it to all the terms in the equation here. So that changes the sign of this one to positive x. That changes this sign to negative 2y. And it changes this sign to negative 6. Now I have my equation in standard form. So this was slope-intercept form. This is converted over to standard form. Standard form becomes really helpful when we want to find the x and the y intercepts. It's very quick, and I'll show you how to do that in another video. All right, hope all is well, and I will talk to you later. Bye.